My name is John Rees. As Russell says, we've been working together with a number of other colleagues to put this together. So delighted to be here, and I'll be picking up some of the things that Russ says in a few moments.
Thanks, John. So yes, as I mentioned, you're here this afternoon to hear about the National Quality Mark for SMSC and British Values. We are really excited to be sharing this with so many colleagues. There's a lot of work gone into this, which we'll run you through as we go through. But the whole point of this afternoon's session really is to kind of, I suppose, just explain what the quality mark is, what the framework offers schools, and how the quality mark and audit tool supports your reflections, school improvement and assurance, and an opportunity to celebrate your SMSC practice and provision. So we'll talk a little bit about why SMSC and British Values matter now. They have for many years, but I think they're especially important in the world we find ourselves in these days and in the education sector. And really think about how SMSC and British Values sit at the heart of school culture, safeguarding and whole school improvement. We're also going to briefly reflect on some of the statutory duties and inspection expectations that connect with SMSC. And of course, we'll explore how the new audit tool can support your role in school and how you can access the toolkit and quality mark, and a little bit about the verification process if that's where your school ends up heading. So that's what we're going to get. Okay, so just as a sort of opening gambit, really, in very brief terms, what the National Quality Mark and Audit Tool provides schools with is kind of the opportunity to share good practice, to measure success and identify areas for development in your school provision of SMSC. It allows you to sequence and provide valuable data for stakeholders, including inspectors. So that's bringing some of the evidence together. And it's designed really to create a whole school approach to broader personal development in your school. So at its heart, the National Quality Mark and Audit Tool is about promoting and developing SMSC provision in schools. It's primarily designed for schools in England, but could also be used by international schools and any other schools that follow the English school framework and curriculum. Now, we know as a team that have put this together based on evidence and our experience that a robust and high quality whole school approach to SMSC brings a lot of benefits to schools, to staff, and to obviously to pupils themselves. So it's a really important vehicle for school improvement in the very widest sense of the word. So the audit tool and quality mark have been designed to be comprehensive, but also quite user friendly, hopefully, to ensure that it promotes kind of consistency across classrooms and phases, that it brings a shared professional language to the work we're doing in SMSC. It gives some inspection ready assurance. That's a big part of our thinking behind the quality mark, obviously, is bringing that evidence together for you, and that it builds that confidence for staff and leaders around SMSC. Just a little bit about us as a team, if I may. So both the audit tool and the quality mark have been developed on a totally voluntary basis by a very experienced team of expert and specialist practitioners who've got a very broad range of experience in the field. So that experience includes school leadership, teaching in a range of mainstream and different phases of schools, subject leadership. We've got PSHE and RSHE consultants, people who've got experience in consulting and working with schools on SMSC, obviously, and wider personal development advisory roles. We have local authority management and advisory experience, curriculum development, and colleagues who've got experience of school governance. So we're really confident that the work we've done to put this together is not only coming from an expert point of view, but also from a really strong evidence base as well. So in terms of the management team at the National Quality Mark, I think we're all here this afternoon. So you've got myself, Russell, my colleague Roy, John, and our other colleague David. So we're all former verifiers for the now old and, dare I say, defunct Young Citizens SMSC Quality Mark. And one of our management team, that's John, he was instrumental in the design and development of the original Quality Mark back in 2017. And our wider team, including our verifiers and support team, have all got extensive experience in working with schools around SMSC provision and the verification process. So just to reassure colleagues, if you are considering using the audit tool and the quality mark, that does come to you from a very strong and very well-resourced background. I'll just hand over to John, if that's okay, John. I think John's just going to quickly share his screen so he can move his slides along himself.
Thanks, Russ. It's going to be a bit start as I seamlessly
That's okay.
move my way
Beautiful.
through this.
There we go.
Let's just take a brief kind of historical perspective. I know many people will know that spiritual, moral, social, cultural stuff was first introduced in the 1944 Education Act. But interestingly, I think in 2014, so more than a decade now, the Royal Society of Arts published this Schools with Soul. And as you can see, it was saying that SMSC development really needs to be at the heart of the curriculum. So I think it's important we work our way through this. I think there is a kind of logical imperative, I would say, that if we can promote SMSC development, it contributes to the whole school community, but it also develops these sorts of things, which you can see on the screen now. And as part of the physical and emotional safety, it also contributes to staff well-being. So although we haven't necessarily got measures for staff well-being, and there will be different things we could point people towards if that's really what you wanted to do, but I think we need to look at this as a whole system approach, something that really reminds schools of the wonderful things you did and still do. Certainly when we were looking at some schools after COVID, they were looking back thinking, oh, do you know, we did this really great thing. Oh, goodness, must be 3 years ago now. Actually, it's 5 years ago. And all of a sudden then none of the children knew anything because they moved through, and what staff sometimes thought was fairly recent or things that they used to do that had just sort of dropped off the radar. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to remind ourselves of the fabulous things that schools do for so many children and young people. We know that culture and relationships, and I'm sure you've seen some of those memes about that culture is felt in the corridors and halls, not just written on the walls. It's that ethos, isn't it? That the values-based stuff is lived, not laminated. That's another meme I picked up from somewhere. But this whole sort of inclusive thing underpins so many gorgeous things, and perhaps the reason that many of us came into education in the first place. And all of these things, although they look worthy, I think for me the central part is relationships. I do some work with a group of psychologists in Gloucestershire, and Tony France, one of their lead team, talks about children's capacity for learning directly correlates to their capacity for relationships. And if we think about the teachers who motivated or inspired us, the people we liked and we wanted to work for, it was probably down to some sort of relationship we had with them. So although we're looking at trying to calibrate and quantify some of this stuff, I think it's also that feel. We know that safeguarding is not just the central synchral record and all those kind of things, although they're very important, but it's a feeling that people will have. Now, I know that many people, just reading through these words, that many people will remember the OECD report. We'll talk about this in just a moment. There was a report you may remember called Skills for a Digital World. And it said, and I'll just read from my notes, students should prepare themselves for jobs that do not yet exist, technologies have not yet been invented, and problems that have not yet even been recognised. And so part of what we're trying to do through the SMSC quality mark is develop some of those qualities, like resilience, like stickability, like bounce back, but all of those slightly sometimes intangible things that make such a difference to students. And as Russ said, we're looking at SMSC development and fundamental British values. Now, we're not getting into, are they really British? Should we have that? Are they correct? Are they appropriate? Those are the things we've been, I say, stuck with. Those are the things that the government, was it 2011, said that these were fundamental British values. Like it or not, that's what we're dealing with. But I do think that it provides us, as it says, a crucial pillar for a rich and relevant curriculum. We don't necessarily have to turn this into a full pub quiz. I can't see the answers of the chat, but if you could keep an eye on it. I'd like you, please, just to take a moment. Children starting school this year, when are they likely to leave full-time education? When are they likely to join the labour market? I'm really sorry. We've got some building work going on at home. I hope you can't hear the sawing and drilling and banging that's going on. I'll just continue to shout over it. Russ, if it gets too bad, just please let me know. I can't see the chat. Let me do that dreadful teacher thing of ask you a question and give you the answer. It's something like 2042. It's a bit of a trick. It's 5 or 6 years old. and do they stay on at university? But I think that is quite mind-bending. When are they likely to retire? I did this with a group of teachers, and one person said never, because the further you get, or closer you get to it, the further they drag it away. But it'll be something like the 2080s. And we think that most of them are probably likely to live into the 22nd century. We have no idea what that looks like, except that we know that children will have to deal with problems that we already know about, like the end of oil, like climate change, like the rise of artificial intelligence. We'll still be arguing about Brexit, no doubt, but they'll also have to deal with problems that we don't even yet realise are problems. And so what we're trying to do here is not just future-proof things, but think about some of the values and principles that underpin some of the things we know children are going to have to face and to develop around empathy. They're going to have to develop self-reliance and resilience and a preparedness to change direction. So part of this is trying to calibrate or quantify some of that, and part of it is enabling you to remember all those gorgeous things that you came into teaching to do, whether that was, I don't know, baking cakes for old people, or the singing carols, or all those lovely things, in addition to a rich and well-resourced curriculum. I'm not going to read these to you because you know these are some of the things that you would expect to do. These are part of the statutory expectations, aren't they? I suppose the bit that I would just highlight, I suppose, when Ofsted or people at DFE are talking about preparation for later life, we tend to assume that when they get to secondary school, post 16, when after in employment, whatever it might be. I think for some children we have to remember that later life means this weekend. So how are we equipping them with the skills and the personal attributes and the knowledge, probably in that order, to be able to manage a highly sexualized, fast-changing world? And a lot of that will come through our PSHE, our SHE curriculum, and a lot of it will be part of the whole school package that children are getting to enable to keep themselves safe. Again, you'll be familiar with this one, I'm sure, this document from a decade ago. The importance of democracy and pupil voice. Those of you who are involved now with the relationships and sex education will know that as from September, there's an increased emphasis on talking to children, understanding their needs, and then adapting the curriculum accordingly. We know that our British values around the rule of law and fairness and I'm never very sure about tolerance, and put up with it, I suppose. But that is our British value, one of our British values, and individual liberty, and mutual tolerance and respect. And if you're ever stuck for an acronym to remember those, or for children to remember those, please just think of Dr. Tim. I'll leave you to sit in awe and wonder at the marvel. But if that's an easy way for children or staff to remember those things, but actually crucial to all of this, that the British values, for good or ill, have to be embedded through SMSC, through our spiritual, moral, social and cultural stuff. Russ, I'm sorry, I clicked on that.
That's okay, that's me. Yeah, back to me. I'll just switch back over to my slides if that's okay. Hopefully you can see those. So yeah, thanks for that, John. So just thinking a little bit more broadly about, and specifically rather, about inspections and those related expectations for schools. We're obviously mindful that the quality mark should provide quite a valuable source of evidence to support positive inspection outcomes. So if we just consider the updated Ofsted Education Inspection Framework, there is quite a strong focus on the new evaluation areas that include, particularly probably relevant to SMSC, to inclusion, to behaviour and attendance, to leadership and governance, and of course, personal development and wellbeing. So whilst SMSC is very much seen by Ofsted as a cross-cutting thing, I never know how to describe it. It's not a tangible thing, is it? It's just this ethos, a value, whatever word you want to use. Personal development and wellbeing is generally where SMSC probably more finds its natural home. We also know that in the new renewed inspection framework, the Ofsted's focus, as John alluded to before, is based more on lived experience and the context of your school. Again, SMSC and your approach to that is a wonderful vehicle to demonstrate that, regardless of who that's to. Let's not pretend Ofsted are the most important people in the education sector, because our students are, but obviously SMSC provides that richness to be able to show your local context what your approach to individual things is, whatever that might be. Personal development, behaviour, culture are of course all intertwined, and an effective whole school SMSC provision has a really big impact on all of those things. Inspectors will be looking at how school leadership impacts on the daily routines and relationships in schools, not just on personal development within the confines of a curriculum offer. So to this end, again, effective SMSC is able to provide really valuable evidence across multiple inspection areas, not just those that I've listed actually. So Ofsted are going to require evidence, which we hope the National Quality Mark and Audit Tool will be able to support you with, that provides that sort of lived experience, not just paperwork. So during inspections, I'm sure you may be aware of the new inspection approach. Ofsted will be testing and exploring that by sort of triangulation, if you like. So what pupils say, what staff do, what leaders know. They'll be carrying out learning walks now. We've gone are the days of the deep dive, although arose by any other name perhaps. So there'll be conversations and a real look at those established routines that matter the most in schools. So what they will want is evidence that is typical, not exceptional. So a small number of strong examples is preferred during in the new inspection regime. Again, something that we feel the National Quality Mark can provide for you. I'm sure you're aware that the Curriculum and Assessment Review findings were published late last year. So just thinking about the findings from the Curriculum Review, we obviously know that one of the review's key recommendations is to strengthen citizenship education across